Have you ever watched an animated show and liked it so much but you couldn't show it to anyone because the animation looks embarrassing? I know I have, with Miraculous Tales of Ladybug and Chat Noir. I mean, look at these end cards. Elmo, what are you doing here? Anyway, I decided it's time to do some justice, since many plotlines of this series are just so overlooked visually, it affects the whole image of it. In my opinion, it's the fan art that's expanding Miraculous fandom and keeping it alive and fat. Wait, those are my artworks. Let's get started with the covers I already did, get into the vibe of my process, and in the end make one cover together. The first cover was dedicated to Stoneheart episode, widely known as Origins double episode at the end of season 1. I found it to be an obvious choice to start with, and I'm still pretty happy with the results. This cover really laid the foundation of what I wanted the series to be. But this cover didn't make me realize the shift in mindset I had to make to actually achieve visually correct covers. The process itself was search for aesthetics. While that's not entirely incorrect, it's a hit or miss situation. Practically, I had to rely on what is already presented in the episode instead of writing down the main motifs and making visual identity myself. Fortunately for this cover, it settled on Stoneheart's design and not random Akumas, Ladybug speaking, or the umbrella scene, because the villain is the main plot of the story and what tells the episode apart from the others, and not a love square that's a subplot. No matter the fact, it's the main reason people are watching the show. I also had to accept the fact that I'm setting the story apart from the series, and that changed the genre of the whole thing immediately. This is a fantasy, young adult hero book now, and it should look like it. What I found pleasing about this cover is that the central stone is in shape of heart, which I try to highlight by coloring it in red in process video. Also, fun fact, intro, at least in my head, supposed to resemble Marinette's working space, as homage to her also being artist/designer. I think it managed to leave the impression of consistency as well, and an identifier. Next cover was Oblivio. This one mentally moved me the most. One of the reasons was waiting for someone to request it. Democracy, some may call it, but what really bugged me while making this cover was the urge to do the so-called fan service. You can even see it in process breakdown. I did not want to let go of the famous hand-holding scene, but I just couldn't render it. It was very frustrating that I even postponed the posting of the whole thing. The deadline I forced myself onto was louder voice compared to my drawing failure, so I gave in and searched the internet for all kinds of symbols. I just had to be done with it so I could continue with the posting schedule, and that's how this huge caption was born. Funny enough, at first, this post went so bad, I had like 1-digit number of likes, but now it's one of the best performing covers. I would have never guessed, but to recap the symbolism of this one, annual rings on stamp represent their memories, while this type blue flowers represent forgetting. So the main plotline. The goo represents the villain, though the villain has 2 seconds screen time. This brings us to a more thought out cover, Chat Blanc, including the traditional composition and narrow diagonal composition that parts the world of Chat Noir. What is his priority? Is it love, represented by a rose sinking in the lower part of the page, or is it greater good, something about since he's the hero of Paris? Unfortunately, his opinion is irrelevant, since both are behind the thick layer of ice, because his madness already made it, so he can't have either. Chills, huh? I still think this cover has the true bookish essence, even though it's almost monochromatic. The blue shades are pieced with faint red in the bottom left quadrant, which from psychological point of view provokes the same emotions evoked in the episode. Special fun fact about this cover is that it pushed me into a re-evaluation of my design style, since it was heavily realistic fantasy style that lost the touch with the true audience of the series, kids. So for the very next cover, I decided to go with an illustration. I redesigned Be Miraculous, turned it into Wasp comp. After arranging it with the title in central, slightly vertical composition, I started thinking about Chloe as the main character of this episode and what she would be like if it was a live-action film. So Mean Girls popped in my mind. Truth to be told, I've never watched that film, but the visual tone of Burn Book inspired me to add doodles that match in color with the main deal, the Miraculous. That also weighed in for putting hot pink glittery text for the title and making a relationship of all colors, yellow, orange, pink, with blue highlights, harmonious. By the way, this was my very first try at crystals, and I had so much fun playing with lasso tool, and it totally stayed as one of my most used things when drawing. On the other hand, the overwhelming satisfaction with Queen Wasp early 2000s teenage popular girl drama influenced a little bit too much the roller cover. You see, it looks shiny and futuristic and historical fantasy in the terms of genre. But hear me out. Realistic painting with fantasy elements and red glow. I'm just saying I could have just switched brush from pen balloon to paint of Aragon. Anyway, the work is already out. It is what it is now. Yet at least I have smiley face on the knight's shoulder. You can notice the main theme I'm doing with these covers. The details are subtle, so the whole story isn't spoiled, but it also connects with the antagonist and not the main characters, which also match the series policy. Episodes are named after villains who affect heroes' lives. Covers are not the usual fan service you get with regular fan art. You can see that with other covers like the following one, Ephemeral, very classy and magical, look even though episode is just angst and nothing more. It's inspired by Adrian's acclimatization costume, Hyperion clock, and Akuma's, aka Gabriel's, numerous tries to win the Miraculous. Fun fact, when I say numerous, I mean 100 because this episode is the 100th episode of Miraculous. It's featured pretty much all over the episodes, so I couldn't skip it myself. You see the dots? They are actually mathematical spiral that counts to 100, which you can see at the top of it. Also, honorable mention, there's actually a rose overlay in the center of the cover. I'm not sure if it's visible on screens with lower brightness, but it's another nod to Marybug and Andrew Shat's relationship. It's again Little Prince and his rose-wise, but French, both tragic. You know what's also tragic? The moment I opened Candle's information after finishing TimeTagger, to find it took me 14 hours for something that will have 14 seconds of exposure on my page. But honestly guys, it was worth it. This is the type of situation where I immediately have an idea and I want to stick to it. This broken glass that reflects all characters in total time-traveling mess looks like it could be a comic book cover. Just imagine Miraculous comic in case they didn't do it, they totally should. The only other option would be for me to start a webtoon, but I'm not sure if anyone uses that website anymore, so I just finished with symbolism. The whole thing is toned with blue to mark the beginning of the Cold War against new butterfly Miraculous Hold'em. You can see her here and Hawkmoon gasping the distrust here. So the opposite sides of Spectre, you know that blue and orange are complementary colors, while the yellow is here dominating to make the disbalance which was caused by TimeTagger. Let's do a full close up like this. Also, Akuma is in the middle of the whole thing, so it looks like it's cause of the mirror breakage. But that's enough about angsty episodes. It's time for a breath of fresh air with Zombizou. I still love this cover, and truth to be told, it was such a relaxing cover to me. I mainly took inspiration from the villain's costume, but also Monster High aesthetics. I don't know if you saw those books, but they are pretty much about texture and logo patches. Just like here, hearts are stitched together, Dr. Frankenstein style, and kisses are all over the place, with the pink one being the final highlight to the piece. The green dots of light that act as some magic bubbles from each kiss match the antagonist's skin color. The title itself is a play on words, so each word is put in a unique font that describes the concept the best. Because of the leather texture of the hearts, I can even picture this as a back of jacket, so if someone dares to mix it with me, I can sense the coolness of it in my bones. Up next is Yaksi Gozen. This one stands out the most style-wise since I want to match Japanese style with simple forms and recognizable palette of white, black and red. Was it successful? Kinda. After all, not even Kagami nor Tomoe are 100% accurate representations. Just look at how she puts down her shinai. If a young Kendoka did that, the punishment would be absolutely insane. But that's not today's topic. At first glance, this cover looks quite abstract, but it's actually akumatized Tomoe falling to her right. In process we have with some variations and outline on the final drawing, but I find this interesting because it gives the viewer a aha moment of realization, yet I'm torn apart when it comes to deciding on preference between that and realistic covers. Now that we mention realistic covers, Princess Fragrance is epitome of that. Both realistic and magical, the perfume bottle mimics the shape of Rose's wooden form skirt, while Puff resembles her new skin color. Rose petals not only match her name and favorite color, they are left in silk after trying Loves Me Not game, which connects to the main plot. Pink haze obstructs the sight by mesmerizing the viewer. I think that episodes from season 1 are really something else when it comes to visual aspect and storytelling abilities. Season 6 might be the one that gets quite close, but the dark theme is the main focus. Personally, I don't think all of them can be standalone episodes. Anyhow, we close this cover with fine diagonal composition and go back to vertical composition with diagonal accents. Mr. Agreste is one of obvious covers where I gave in when it comes to referencing series designs, but I still find somewhat okay because imagine how series felt like it would pull the genre of the whole thing. Anyway, I'm quite satisfied with having both Cataclysm and Akuma appearing on the opposite sides of the picture, resembling the two causes of Gabriel's death, decaying of the body and losing of his mind. For those who know the plot, they know this is actually Theo in disguise, forcing Adrian to relive his biggest trauma. Even though in the caption of this cover you can see that the next episode is Scarlet Moth, it turned out there's no such thing. Yeah, googling just before me making cover was not a good idea. It just the list took off. So here we have Catalyst. Drawing moths wasn't as big a challenge I thought it's going to be, but what really put everything together was the arrangement and directioning at like they are even listening to the title itself, or better say, person described by the title. So the compositions are circular for familiarity and unifying alongside the common color and central composition. Just so we have the mind control component. On the other side, the changes in shape of letters A, T, and A are put to match Natalie's mask. I think for me, this cover can pass for younger teen audience, genre-wise, while the next one gives strong young adult vibes. And it's of course Glaciator, the original episode from season 2. To be completely honest, this was a case of this cover will be unserious no matter what I do. You can clearly see that with Glaciator himself being featured in down right quadrant, that I think I managed to keep the integrity of the story and redirect the real antagonist being Paris, the city of love, where you're pretty much forced to wear the pink glasses or else the gigantic ice cream will get you. This also kinda ties into fan art I did few months before this cover. Higher resolution wallpaper is on my Patreon. Fun fact for this cover is this was my first attempt at cityscape, and honestly it could have been worse, but I still have a soft spot for the far right building since it's given Love is Always Right. This cover was both stressful and fun to make, but what's the most important thing right now is that we've finished with the overview and it's time for ranking. On the bottom, Princess Fragrance. You were good, I'm waiting for you to be great. And next, TimeTagger. You didn't stick out to me. Next, Stoneheart. Next, Zombizou. You're third on the pyramid, you were third overall high score. And Chat Blanc. And on the top of the pyramid, going 3 for 3, once again, is Queen Wasp. I feel like this is a pretty decent ranking. Let me know what would be your ranking while I walk us through the process of making brand new cover. And to make it even more special, it'll be New York special book cover. The first thing that probably came to your mind was, wait, wasn't the last cover city themed? You'd be right, Glaciator cover has cityscape, but that's actually a good thing because it pushes us in different direction. I'm not saying a small street full of heroes wouldn't look cool, but if you look for any other poster or book cover with American heroes, you'll see it all kinda looks the same. Hats and more hats. I find this also genre indicator, so hats have to be there, but not in that arrangement. At first, I thought about including the Statue of Liberty, but dividing it in halves, where one half would be the statue and the other would be silhouette with small action scenes or portraits. Soon I thought again, what are the other symbols of New York? And it became obvious. New York Times. The grid looks interesting and it allows additional details and clues about the main plot. It also can include quotes from the series and author names. I started with putting text and aligning it. For the illustration, I picked a very cartoony style with dedicated color for each character. Ladybug is red, Night Owl, Fiery Orange, Eagle brown, Uncanny Valley lime, and Chat Noir green. After sketching the characters or the general vibe, I started doing the line art with comic brushes Procreate offers, since my personal pack is more semi-realism oriented. I really enjoyed figuring out how to do the lighting and texture with only 2 colors, but you can still see that I tried to match the style by making the alterations on the laid-back drawing. That I would recommend other artists because it's an easier approach. You know what you have to fix instead of winging it from the start every single time. It also speeds the process up. Anyway, I made the most of them smiley or neutral except Chat Noir, just so someone who sees this for the first time can connect the subtitle with him. I also decided to put characters in shadow so it pops out more, give some texturing and halftone, and that's it. What do you think? For me, this is not the usual hero cover, but I think it still speaks to the younger audience and allows them to immediately identify with the heroes based on both colors and character design. Gradient is also something that makes them more themed, if you ask me. Text is still pretty readable, yet it looks like late edition is the only one that needs to be super zoomed in. I like how the whole thing turned out, so my rating is 6 out of 10. And with that, part 1 of the series is over. I'll try my best to make videos with more cover processes, with other episodes from the list, and of course, if I see an episode being recommended abnormal amount of times, I'll be pushing it in front of the queue. Democracy. Anyhow, till next video call, be creative.